Anyone signed it yet, Elaine?
No.
Well, we better find a couple more of them.
Yeah, where is everybody?
Yeah, no chair or vice chair at the moment.
Hmm?
Neither chair nor vice chair is here.
It must be meeting.
Irfan and Brendan are not here yet.
Norman. Oh, Norman might be.
Yeah, Norman was going to be late. Hi, Tim.
Hi, nice to see everybody.
Yeah, it's good to see you too.
Brendan doesn't have the Zoom link for some reason, so I'm gonna copy and send it to him.
Okay, Irfan just joined.
Hello.
Hi.
So Brendan was just asking me where the link is for the meeting.
I'm gonna text it to him. I'm just grabbing it right now.
All right. I told him to click on the agenda link. That worked for me.
Yeah, that worked for me.
Well, now I'm all screwed up.
Sounds like a seagull.
Elaine, can you text it to him somehow? He's probably on his phone.
I don't have this.
I can email it.
Email it.
Or
I don't
but
know
he's,
if email going.
Or
Yeah,
if you go to the meeting calendar on the town website.
I couldn't do it on my phone because it took me to the link instead of letting me copy the link. This is like a progressive commercial where everyone's on Zoom and no one's doing anything. You seen those? They all sit there and stare at each other blankly.
should Irfan start reading the that long thing we have to read at the beginning while we wait? Or
Brendan does that.
I know, but
Yeah, he's not. That's
I'm texting the link to him as well.
okay.
Hey folks, it's the host. Does anybody know the name of the Verizon rep that is scheduled to speak?
As of this afternoon, they weren't sure who the rep was going to be.
Okay.
I feel bad for those Verizon reps because they always not knowing the history of what we're going through.
At the
Yeah,
last,
it,
at the
it,
last
it looks like,
at the last meeting, it was Ross Bilodeau. I don't know if it'll be the same person.
We could ask them to raise their hand if they're listening. Oh,
Drove through town tonight, all kinds of colored markings all over Main Street. And so things are getting started. The sooner they get started, the sooner they finish. So I'm anxious. The work was being done on Cedar Street today too. It was a detour, so that was good to see that being done.
Yep. It certainly makes me realize like how much of a wrench it's going to throw into getting around.
Yeah, Little Walcott Street had a lot of people today, and it's, you know, Corona's out there. It's not even all open, so.
Yeah.
You know if Brendan got this or not?
No idea. I mean, I texted it to him. He should have it.
Mr. Falcione, I see you have your raised hand, a hand raised. Bob, you've been given the ability to speak.
He's not muted, it doesn't look like.
Yeah, all right, great. I'm glad you can hear me. Mary Jo, I just wanted to make sure he's got his hand raised and make sure he's not having any trouble or need anything.
Actually, hang on a sec, Brendan. I got Brendan on the phone. He's trying to come in. Josh, can you let him in? He's on a cell phone. Hi, Brendan.
The only name that I see that's not a full name is an initials of TG.
oh, I see Brendan's name now. Do you see it?
Did he just pop up? Yep, there he is. He'll be coming in just a moment.
There we go.
3, 2, 1.
There he is.
Here I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. Thank you.
Can't see you though.
I see the deep blue sky.
Yeah,
I don't know why that is.
you're blue.
You need to
Sorry.
point the camera at yourself, you know?
Oh, you know what? My daughter's got a cut. There's like 50 computers here. And I took my daughter's cracked old junky Chromebook. There's she had to
Hey, we see you.
put tape over the thing there. All right, thanks. And sorry for the delay. My house is dealing with a little technical issues here. But we made it through. So let me get to the script and I will start the meeting. And you'll have to bear with me. Obviously, as you can see, I'm reading this from my phone and my eyes are that of a 50-something-ish old person. So no offense, Mary Jo.
I was gonna say, wait
all
a
right.
few years.
I call the meeting to order. As a preliminary matter, this is Brendan Tedstone, Select Board Chair. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Irfan Nasrullah,
Yes. Affirmative.
Brian Herr,
Here.
Mary Jo Lafreniere,
Here,
Amy Ritterbush.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mr. Kamalu, who I believe is late, he called me and said that he was going to miss the first half of the meeting. And Ms. Lazarus.
Here.
Additional speakers this evening may include Sean McAuliffe, Steve Slamman, a Verizon rep, Dan Terry, Bud Zoke, Ivrea Glass-Freed, Dave Del Torio, Ben Sweeney, Maria Casey, and Tim O'Leary. This is a Zoom webinar. If there's anyone attending that would like to speak during the public forum or the portion of the agenda, You must notify the meeting host in advance. The open meeting of the Hopkins Select Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we're complying with the executive order that suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The executive order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely as long as the public body makes provisions through adequate alternative means to ensure interested members of the public are provided reasonable access to the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. For this meeting, the Select Board is convening by video conference via Zoom webinar, as posted on the town's web meeting calendar and the board's agenda identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting may also be broadcast by HCAM through one of our many platforms, through one of its many channels or platforms. Please note that the meeting is being recorded and some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you. Take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured in the recording. We are now turning to the first item of the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will invite board members to provide any comment, question, or motion. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in dialogue with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. Not every agenda item will feature public comment for the public forum of this agenda. The chair will work with the meeting host to call on each pre-registered speaker to make their comment. Each speaker must begin by identifying their name and address. Each speaker will have up to 2 minutes for their concerns and comments. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Pledge of Allegiance. Let's please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic
for which
for
Stands
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
and
with
justice.
liberty and justice.
and justice for all.
Thank you. Play ball. So COVID-19 update. Sean McAuliffe, Public Health Direct. Oh no, I'm sorry. I skipped over that. Public Forum. Josh, has anyone told you they wanted to speak?
Someone has their hand raised, two people.
Yeah, I haven't heard from anybody advanced, but we have 2 raised hands.
Okay, let's take the first one. Who is it?
First raised hand named is Ann Martina, and Ann, you are now allowed to talk. If you want to unmute yourself, you should be heard.
Okay, thank you very much. Ann Martina. Excuse me?
So you got 2 minutes.
Okay, just want to say that I am joining you this evening because I want to express my support for the 4 calls to action that Alana Cassidy put before the board that I know are coming up later on in the evening for discussion by the board. I endorse all 4 and feel that these are all important actions for the board to take to really signal to the larger community that we understand and are willing to really put some weight behind our expressions around race, gender, ethnicity, sexuality, and other areas of concern of our community. So thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Ann. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Josh, who's next?
We have Muriel Kramer has her hand up. Muriel, you should now have the ability to talk if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much. I also, I join Ann in supporting these conversations, and I want to thank the Select Board for considering these calls to action. It's my hope that as we enter that we're able to enter into ongoing, robust, and dedicated sort of community-wide conversation that doesn't end tonight, that helps our community grow in awareness, building a sense of welcome and increasing diversity, while also building trust and deepening relationships community-wide. I know that it can be easy to slip into a place of defensiveness or hypersensitivity when we start talking about these things like institutional racism and the effects therein, but perhaps especially when we're also just beginning to understand our own place or privilege in the systems. I know I get overwhelmed at times. I did want to say that I have been thinking a lot about the broad call to defund the police and personally struggle with that tagline. I do hope we actively support our department and the individuals in it, while we also work to learn more about what we spend and what we receive in services in return from the police department. I think the conversations we have need to be very robust and complex, but centered in facts and data. And I hope we hold tight to a focus on the ways we can grow, improve, and build community for even better services going forward. A premise I hold to is that we need to compensate our professionals like our police officers so we hire and retain the best. There is urgent work in front of us to elevate the issues in front of us.
15 seconds, Mariel. 15
Okay,
seconds.
thank you. We are looking to our leaders to empower and participate in these conversations, and I hope every board, a leadership board, enters into them with real purpose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Josh,
you.
anyone else?
Mr. Chair, no other hands raised at the moment.
Great. Perfect. So we're going to be moving on now. COVID-19 update. Sean McAuliffe, you'll provide an update on the town's response to the COVID-19 response. Sean, I'm holding you to 5 minutes tonight, buddy.
I've got 3 minutes.
All right. I'm holding you to 3 minutes. Hold on. Let me get my stopwatch. You're
All right.
on. Go.
Okay. So so we have 132 active cases, 132 cases, 1 active case, 119 recovered, and 12 have passed. Since the last time I met with you, we had the DPH complete a review of our cases, and they assigned one of our deaths and one of our cases to another community. Recent cases in town have resulted from workplace exposure out of the town, international travel coming to the town, and socializing without proper distancing and face coverings. We've had a number of individuals aged 20 to 25 test positive or have recent antigen testing revealing that they had been infected within the last 2 to 3 weeks. So what that has done is that has kind of caused us to refocus on what we need to do with as a community to kind of buckle down. And what we intend to do is roll out an initiative tentatively titled It Starts at Home. The objective is to re-energize the community, engage the community in modeling good behavior at the home and in the workplace, familiarize all parents with the symptoms they will need to be looking for at home, and acclimating their children to wearing face coverings. Why are we doing this? The monitoring, distancing, and face covering acclimation will support the school's reentry program. We've made a lot of progress with the development and recently modified program changes. We had a lengthy discussion with the school department today, or actually the administration today, about recent regulations and guidelines developed by DESE, and how we believe that we can implement a better program that will not only provide protection to our students, our faculty, our administrators, and our staff, but also provide a model program for the town that the other communities in the Commonwealth can follow. The program will likely include implementation of a digital home attestation program. We are using a similar program in all of the public safety offices, the newly opened municipal offices, and most of you guys are using a program similar to this in your workplace. It will take, a community, or it will take the community to pull this off. The better the community buy-in, the greater the chance we all have to return to an almost normal life. That's work life and home life. Not to surprise you, Norman, but we're going to request an expedited review, or legal review of this attestation program, just so that we've got legal's buy-in. This program is being used, as I said, throughout the Commonwealth, but we just like that review, and I'll be submitting a request to you for review tomorrow. And lastly, we sent out notices to 10 businesses in the community that recently received complaints or notices of violation from the Department of Labor and Standards in the AG's office. We are focused on educating the businesses and bringing them into compliance. And why is this education important? Is because we are seeing cases of COVID in our local businesses, and we want to make sure that we are controlling that risk, that they have implemented the best processes that they can, so that our businesses don't contribute to any spread within the community. That said, I'm through. Does anybody have any questions?
Nice job, Sean. You got 6.06 seconds left.
Could have been a little smoother but I do have to get back to a 9-year-old's birthday party.
All right. Well, happy birthday. Thank you for the update. We appreciate it.
Okay. And I will follow up with people.
Any board members have any questions for Sean before he goes to, oh, there she is.
Great job. Oh,
Good. Go have,
they're cute. Hi, girls.
awesome. All right. Go have fun. Daddy's free.
Okay.
Thanks, Sean.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Consent agenda. The consent agenda items are to approve the minutes of June 22, 25, and July 2 select board meetings. Any members want to break any item out for separate vote?
I just noticed 1 minute's correction. Sorry, now I don't remember if it was the 25th or the 2nd, but it just gave Alana Cassidy's address as 92 Eastview when it should be, I think, 19 Eastview.
I'll correct that.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Elaine. So I will request a motion to approve the consent agenda with that.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as
edited by.
Amended.
Yeah, amended.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none. How do you vote? Mr. Nasrullah?
Yes.
Mr. Herr?
Yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Yes.
Ms. Ruderbush?
Yes.
Redstone, yes. So 5-0. It works. Annual appointments. The board will begin making annual appointments to the boards, committees, and offices and confirm town manager appointments. This is the first round with additional appointments to be made at the next regular meeting. I note that the vacancies have been advertised noticed as required by the charter. The board will start by addressing appointments to board and committee members listed in our packet that there are no contested seats. In the past, we would have done this with a standing motion, but because all our votes must be roll call at remote meetings, and in the interest of time, I would like to treat it like the consent agenda, where we list the appointments and vote at the end, all of them at once. After members have an opportunity to pull out any separate vote, then we will take up contested seats, followed by select board appointments and town manager appointments. I will request a motion to appoint the following individuals to the various boards and committees listed to the terms identified. Ted Barker Hook to the Conservation Commission, term expiring 6/30/23. Michelle Heaney to the Cultural Council, term expiring 7/21/23. Michelle Murdoch to the HCAM Board of Directors, term expiring 6/30/23. Bob Levinson, Bob McGuire, Dottie Ferrier-Wallace to the Marathon Committee at Large, terms expiring 6/30/23. Amy Groves, Christine Kaufman, Renee Dean, Mina Kaushik, Paul Gallagher, and Peggy Barton to the Sustainable Green Committee, term expiring 6/30/23. Mike Wellen to the Veteran Celebration Committee, term expiring 6/30/23. Paul Lar to the Woodville Historic District Commission, term expiring 6/30/23. Andrea Crames to the Youth Commission, term expiring 6/30/23. Any member like to pull one or more out for a separate vote? Okay, so I suppose I need a motion.
So,
I actually asked, I read the motion.
so moved?
That was the motion.
Second?
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Nasrullah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Herr,
Yes.
Lafreniere,
Yes,
Ritterbush,
Yes.
Redstone, yes. The board will now review board committee vacancies that have contested seats and will take them up individually. Board of Appeals. There are 2 vacancies, 1 full member position and 1 associate member position. Rhea McNamara is currently an associate member and has applied to fill the full-time member position. If moved to full member, there is another associate member vacancy. Jerry Tewitt is currently an associate member, has requested reappointment. John Catino has applied for appointment of the board. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, I move that John Catino serve as a full member on the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay,
Second that.
okay. Any further discussion?
I have something to
yeah,
say.
Ms. Ritterbush.
I was just going to say that I've worked with Rhea McNamara for the last several years on Design Review Board, and she's also served on the Zoning Advisory Committee for several years. And then, she's also been an associate member of the Board of Appeals for more than a year. So I think that we'd be better served by appointing her as the full member and appointing the new person as an associate member, because I think that's usually how the process goes. Someone's an associate for a little while, then the next time a full member seat vacancy comes up, then they apply for that.
Okay. Ms. Lafreniere.
yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I mean, people who are associate members for quite a while and serve in different positions usually get the chance to move up. And I have no problems with John being the associate for a little while. He'll still participate. But that's the way I just feel is fair.
Okay. So we have a motion and we have it seconded. I guess we'll call for a vote now. Mr. Nasrullah, how do you vote?
Nasrullah, yes.
Her?
Yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
No,
Ms. Ritterbush?
No.
Ted Stone, yes. So that carries. And let's see. So Hopkins Historic District Commission.
Mr.
There are
Chair,
2 hours.
Oh,
Yes.
wait a minute.
I believe we've got some associate positions to fill.
Okay, that is not on my motions meeting here, thing here.
Elaine, don't we have 2 associate positions?
We have one associate position for which Jerry Tewitt has requested reappointment. Rhea is already an associate member, so she's
So
fine.
you remain as an associate, and then we appoint somebody else for this other position.
Right, so Jerry Tewitt, his term has expired and he is seeking reappointment. Rhea's appointment doesn't expire for another couple of years.
Okay. So I guess I will accept the motion for Jerry Tewitt to be appointed, to be reappointed to an associate member.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, how do you vote, Mr. Nasrullah?
Yes.
Mr. Herr?
Yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Yes,
Ms. Ritterbush?
I'm gonna abstain.
Mr. Ted Stone, yes. Okay. Is that good there?
That's good.
Hopkins Historic District Commission. There are 2 at-large vacancies and 1 vacancy for Historical Society representative. We have not received the name of a historical representative, Historical Society representative yet. So tonight we will fill the 2 at-large seats only. There are 3 applicants: Beth Watson, Amy Ritterbush, Stacy Spies.
So I'm going to recuse myself from the discussion for this item.
So do we have Beth Watson, Amy Ritterbush, is Stacy on the line? Josh?
What was the last name? I'm sorry.
Spies, S-P-I-E-S.
Yep, she's been granted the ability to talk.
Okay.
I'm here.
Stacy. All right, so we have three people looking for 2 at-large seats. So do we have the chair for the Historic District Commission here? Or any members from the Historic District Commission?
So I'm the chair of the Historic District Commission.
Okay. And you've recused yourself, so you're not able to.
And Beth Watson is the vice chair, who's also up for appointment.
So this is 100% on us, I guess. Elaine, Mr. Kamala's not on yet, right?
Not yet.
Okay, Elaine, so Beth Watson is here, correct?
I don't know if she's here.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought I saw her on the roster. So all 3 are here, and there are 2 people that are seeking reappointment. Elaine, has there been any issues or anything that's come up over the last however long, couple of years since we've had to speak with these people that would show that they have been doing anything short of an exemplary job?
No.
No. And so there are 2 at-large vacancies and 1 vacancy for a Historical Society rep. So if we reappoint Beth and Amy, do we have a spot where we could put Stacy?
There are no other positions right now other than Historical Society representative. The society is aware that if none of their members would like to be appointed, that Ms. Spies is an option, but they'd like to reach out to their members first.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, and I'd appreciate if Amy could jump back in as an applicant and not as a select board member. I'm struggling with the ability to serve both as a select board member and on the Historical District Commission, given the review processes that the Historic District Commission rightly does, and sometimes, as you know, whatever it might be moving forward, and then the Historic District Commission has to take a look at it. I can't recall in my terms anyone serving both those positions. I can't recall in my terms anyone serving in 2 positions in general. I think Claire did the Cemetery Commission for a while. Maybe some others have done stuff, but as you get further into this job becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and the conflicts, I think, could be difficult for you at times. But it's your call. But I would just put that out there to think seriously about this, because you're going to be recusing yourself a lot, and that doesn't help the board, and I don't think that helps the Historic District Commission either. You'll have to recuse yourself from that committee quite a bit if it's going to come before us at some point. There would be a disconnect there that I don't think will help the Historic District Commission. But I guess I can't imagine all the different ways it would play out, but just something to think about as we go through this. I don't have a problem if you want to do it, but I think it's going to be problematic for you and for both boards at times.
Do you want me to respond, or do you want to ask everybody the same question? Or
No, I'd like you to respond.
so I'm hoping that if I am reappointed, I'm hoping that someone else would take over the chairmanship of the Historic District Commission, because it is a lot of work. But I would also be really sad to step down from the Historic District Commission, because I've really enjoyed that over the last 6 years. It's not a very active board. They don't even always have to meet every month. So I don't think from a time standpoint, that would be a problem for me. But
so what do you think is in the best interest of the town, Amy? It doesn't matter how you feel about it. What's in the best interest of the town?
I think it would be in the best interest of the town if I served a little longer and helped ease the transition to a new chair, and then could step off later.
Okay, fair enough.
So I'd like to say I've seen Amy juggle her responsibilities on the planning board, as well as chair of the Historic Commission. So I've seen her handle it. And on top of all that, she's also doing her private work with EHOP. So I know she can handle it. The recusal thing is I think valid, but I'm not sure that it's a disqualifier. Actually, I don't think it's a disqualifier at all.
I think there's logic to the transition concept. Maybe the thing to do is go ahead for this year, and if it doesn't play out well, or you're recusing yourself every other meeting because something's eventually come to us, it's your guys are hearing, and vice versa, then maybe you could rethink it next year. We could all rethink it next year. But okay, I'm good.
All right. So Beth Watson, you are definitely interested in continuing on, correct?
Yes. Can you
Yeah.
hear me?
Yep.
Yes, I
Yep.
am.
Okay.
I am, yeah, but then Stacy and I both are historic preservationists, so it makes it complicated.
Okay. So, Stacy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd be good at this role?
Actually, I've been on the Historic District Commission before. And actually, you know what, I have been out of town Mondays through Fridays for the last couple of years, but I'm back in town full time these days, thanks to COVID. Actually, I am a member of the Historical Society too. So that may help. You know, I'm not in charge of that, how people come to the commission, but that's an option too. I, like Beth, I have a master's degree in historic preservation, and I've been working up here, I guess, for full time, I guess, the last 4 or 5 years. And I've done a number of the surveys, like the one that Hopkinton did just a couple of years ago. But yeah, and I think I was on Historic District Commission right before Beth came in. So we've kind of done tag team. So I will say we're both really qualified.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm a little confused because my understanding was my term was expiring, so I needed to renew. Amy Ritterbush's term was expiring, she needed to renew. And then Marianne Chambers quit, and she was the liaison to the Historical Society. So for me, that equals 3. And I guess I'm just a little confused by this, only being 2.
Ms. Lazarus, can you clarify that for us, please?
Yes, so the Historical Society must name a new nominee to the committee. So we're waiting for them to provide the name of that nomination. If 60 days pass after we've requested a nomination without something from them, then the board can appoint anyone it chooses.
Okay, so that would equal 3 then, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, but not
Okay.
tonight. When is that
Not
60 days
tonight.
up, Elaine?
In about another month.
Okay.
And a individual could go to that organization and ask that they be appointed as their representative, correct?
Correct.
Like this meeting, whoever doesn't get in could go over there and say, would you guys mind appointing me? I'd love to do it.
That
Yeah,
may have happened.
direct ask.
I have another suggestion. I'm the liaison to the Historic Commission from the Board of Selectmen. I would be more than happy to let Amy be the liaison to that commission from the Board of Selectmen, if she would like to, if she thinks that would help her situation.
So I don't know how that would, are you saying?
She wouldn't be a voting member, that would be the problem.
So you're saying for her to step down and then replace herself, instead of being the chair of the committee, to be the liaison from us?
Yeah, it's,
Okay.
she doesn't have to do that, but.
Ms. Ritterbush, would you like to respond to that?
I'd really rather stay on the commission. That's my preference. But I guess a third option could be if you appoint none of us tonight, Beth and I will remain on the board. And then we may find out from the Historical Society in 30 days who they're going to appoint. I don't
That's
know.
an interesting option because
I don't like that. That seems
Okay.
that seems a little backdoor to me. So, so I guess I'll entertain a motion. Someone wants to put a motion out there.
So
I
before we go to the motion, I just want to make it clear. So we could just nominate the 2, and then in 30 days and appoint a third person, correct?
If the other organization does not submit a candidate.
Right.
Yeah.
To which that organization is already, Stacy is already a member of that organization, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I'm also
Yeah.
a member.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I move to appoint to fill the vacancies with Amy Ritterbush and Beth Watson.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Nasrullah, how do you vote?
Nasrullah, yes.
Mr. Herr?
Yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Yes.
Ms. Ritterbush, you've abstained, and I will vote yes. So Ted Stone, yes. So that is a 4-0. So Ms. Spies, if you are, I would implore you to speak to that historical society.
Okay,
And,
that's easy enough to do.
huh?
That's easy enough to do.
Yep. Speak to them and tell them that you'd like to be appointed and you're in it, or tell them not to do anything and we'll appoint you. It's up to you. So,
Sounds like a plan or two. That sounds good.
awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Everyone.
Thank
Trail
you.
Coordination and Management Committee, there are 2 at-large vacancies and 3 applicants. Charles Douchy is seeking reappointment. Allison Hughes is a new applicant, and Margaret Wiggin is a new applicant. Are all 3 on the call with us, please?
Charles Dotchie is.
Okay. Allison Hughes or Margie Wiggin?
Yeah, I see Margie.
I see Margie.
Allison? Okay, Allison Hughes is not here.
Mr. Chair, this is the host. I don't see that name listed.
Okay, easy enough. So the chair will entertain a motion to reappoint Charles Douchy and to appoint Margie Wiggin to the Trails Coordination and Management Committee.
Chair, I move to appoint Mr. Charles Douchy and Miss Margaret Wiggin to the Trails and Management Committee.
Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Nasrullah, how do you vote?
Nasrullah, yes.
Her?
Yes.
Lafreniere?
Bernier, yes.
Ms. Ritterbush?
Yes.
And Ted Stone, yes. So that carries. Select Board appointments. Nelson Golden has applied for reappointment as Special Constable. I'm saddened to report that Mr. Golden recently passed. Mr. Golden was a former police officer in Hopkinton and served as Special Constable for years. The board sends its condolences to Mr. Golden's family and are grateful for his service to the town. The Select Board will appoint Town Council and Labor Council. There are no proposed changes this year, with Myeres and Harrington as Town Council and Merrick O'Connell as Labor Council. I request a motion to appoint Myeres and Harrington as Town Council expiring 6/30/21.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? None. Mr. Nasrullah?
Nasrullah, yes.
Mr. Herr?
Yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Bernier, yes.
Ms. Ritterbush?
Yes.
Mr. Ted Stone, yes. I request a motion to approve Merrick O'Connell as our labor attorney, expiring 6/30/21.
So moved.
Okay. Anyone want to second that?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Nasrullah, how do you vote?
Nasrullah, yes.
Mr. Herr?
Yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Bernier, yes.
Ms. Ritterbush?
Yes.
Mr. Ted Stone, yes. Town manager appointments. The board will consider affirming town manager appointments listed in the packet. All are 1-year terms. Inspector of Animals is Liz Jeffries. Animal Control, Bill Proctor. Plumbing and Gas Inspector, Charles DeBritz. Assistant Plumbing and Gas Inspector, Peter Zareski. Assistant Plumbing and Gas Inspector, Dan Hunt. Wire Inspector, Jim Melnick. Person to cut wire in case of fire, Jim Melnick. Assistant Wiring Inspector, Kevin Boret. Mutual Aid Building Inspector, Michael Christofouli. Sealer of Weights and Measures, Louis Saskin. Public Weigher, John Palmer, Jane Adams, Jessica Palmer, Jamie Wright, Chelsea Adams, William Robinson, Will Crofton. I will request a motion to affirm the town manager appointments as listed to terms expiring 6/30/21. Any, oh, I'm sorry, I gotta wait for a second.
So
Second.
All right.
Can
Any
I-
further discussion?
Yeah, I just had a question about these. These are town manager appointments, but we still have to approve them or
Confirm
Yep.
them.
just confirm them? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Nastula, how do you vote?
Mr. Lee, yes.
Mr. Herr?
Her, yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Lafreniere, yes.
Ms. Ritterbusch?
Yes.
Mr. Tedstone, yes.
I'm just going to add, I have a couple questions on some of them, but I will email Norman later about that. So,
Okay. FY21 goals, Fire Chief. The Select Board will discuss possible goals for the FY21. For FY21 with Steve Slamman, Fire Chief. Potential goals are public safety project continued, especially as it pertains to response times during the Main Street Corridor project. Collaborate with Eversource in an effort to complete the emergency response guide, including evacuation communications, information continued, COVID management plan, not only for department, the community, and work collaboratively with the health director and department town managers, and succession planning and employee development. Is Chief Slamman on the line?
Unmute. Okay.
Good evening.
Okay. Hello, Chief. So, Chief, we just missed you when we were going over these the other day. We cut you free before we went over these with you, and we couldn't get you back. We know that you were real busy that day. So, have you had a chance to take a look at these goals?
I do. I had a little bit different list in front of me than you just read, but whatever we work out is fine with me.
Okay. So you're good with what, Mary Jo?
I just wanted to make a comment. The night that we were discussing things, and I made the suggestion that you give a report from time to time to Bobby or somebody to let the townspeople know what you're doing. You seem very amenable to that. And I was just wondering, are you still amenable to that suggestion?
Absolutely. I promise. We've had some dialogue internally how we're going to get that information out.
Good, good. I think it's for your benefit.
I agree.
All right. So I will request a motion to set FY21 goals for Steve Slamman, Fire Chief, as discussed, modified, etc.
So moved.
I'll second it, but I got a question.
Oh,
Okay, Mr. Herr?
I thought we were talking about Chief getting a little bit more focused and granular on the second substation project as part of our goals for next year too.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
You may.
this is Maria Casey.
hi, Maria.
Something may have been lost in translation. And I know right after the meeting, I had called Chief Slayman up so that he had a heads up. So maybe if Chief could list those off with permission.
Because I didn't see them in our packet. Did I miss that? The goals?
Yeah, they weren't in the
They weren't in
pocket.
the packet. Okay.
Just the
Again, it was from before when we laid out the goals.
yeah, other meetings.
Okay.
It was before the election, so.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, through you, Chief, would you mind just listing what I had given you on that day?
Sure. Goal number 1, public safety project continued, especially as it pertains to response times during the Main Street project. So I think that might be a blending of 2 of the past goals, the way it's written. Number 2, collaborative with Eversource in an effort to complete the emergency response guide, including evacuation and communications information continued. And number 3, COVID management plan, not only for the department, but also the community and collaboratively with the health department.
Through the chair. So my mistake, Mr. Chair. As Chief Slayman stated, those were the 3 that I believe you had all talked about a few weeks ago.
All right, so we will erase number 4, succession planning, employee development, which is fair because we only had 3 goals for Mr. Kamalu as well, right?
Correct.
All right, is the board amenable to that, that omission of goal number 4 on there?
Yeah, but I'd like to put back in the public safety or the fire department substation study and process in its place. I mean, if we're going to be doing this in the next couple of years, we got to get on it. It's got to be a serious goal for us.
I think he's on it, Brian. I think that he's on it, and I think that he's working on it. You know, I think it would be tough to make it a goal when we're not really forthcoming with very much money and capital items or anything like that right now. But I think he's still going to work on it. We've given him the okay to work on it. Chief, what are your thoughts on that?
I would, listening to the dialogue, I spent 2 hours with the consultants today on the project. It is going to be my life for the rest of my career. So I'm all for it. And I think, you know, the Main Street corridor project, I also will be working on. It's that's a much bigger and larger team. So maybe we ease out the Main Street corridor project emphasis. I have to work on it anyways. I have to do the goal that we just took off has to happen anyways. So they will happen. And I agree. I'm all for doing the public safety project.
Okay, so you want to replace the public safety project? Actually, wait a minute, what do we got here?
Feel better, Mr. Chair, now. So if you want to proceed with the 3 that we talked about before, I'm okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so. Okay. So for some reason here, unless it just changed, I have public safety project continued, especially, no, I'm sorry, that's right. So, all right, so we're good with numbers 1, 2, and 3 as read, deleting number 4, correct?
Yes.
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 Okay, it's been moved. Has it been seconded?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Just
Hearing
gonna
none.
add, if we could get them in writing, since it's been a little confusing tonight, at the end, that would be great.
Okay, I'll read them. So it's captured in the minutes. Public safety project continued, especially as it pertains to the response times during Main Street corridor project. That was number 1. Number 2, collaborate with Eversource in an effort to complete the emergency response guide, including evacuation and communications information continued. COVID management plan is number 3, not only for the department, but for the community, and work collaboratively with the health director department and town manager. Okay, so Mr. Nasrullah, how do you vote?
Nasrullah, yes.
Mr. Herr?
Yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Yes.
Mr. Ritterbush? I'm sorry, Ms. Ritterbush? I'm sorry. And Mr. Tedstone, yes. Are we at 7 o'clock yet? Not yet. So we will kill 7 minutes. We'll do this call to action. Call to action. During the public forum portion of the board meeting on July 2, a resident proposed a call to action that covered several subjects and activities. It appears some could be addressed by the select board and some could be referred to other town entities for review and consideration. There was some confusion regarding the development of this agenda item. From a timing perspective, going forward, it's important that we all understand the agenda items come from the select board members and not the general public. Board members, I would like to talk about how we as a board could consider these subjects for future discussion, which might include some policy discussion by the board and or review by others. As many people know, the town charter specifically states that the board may not be involved in the day-to-day administration of any town department. The board is responsible for policy matters and has a defined process for bringing matters onto future agendas. We do understand the need to address the issues raised, as it is equally important that we do so in a compliant and meaningful way. Board members, I will invite your comments and guidance on this matter. Mr. Nasrullah?
So I'm really happy that Alana had spoken at the public forum and brought these things to attention. I think it was horrifying for everyone to watch the murder of George Floyd, and I think that's something that hit everyone deeply. when it comes to our town in Hopkinton, you know, I generally approach things, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And I don't see a problem here in Hopkinton of systemic racism, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Right.
So, you know, in my opinion, I think it is always worthwhile for us to step back and take a look at how are we doing things, and I think certainly, you know, as far as the call to action is, you know, do we welcome all races? Of course, we welcome all races, ethnicities, religions, abilities, gender identifications, sexual orientations, and I think that's a given, and I'm happy to make that as a formal statement. So yes, I think that it's worthwhile, but at the same time, I don't think we can attach our name to any particular movement. Um, I think we can identify with ideals and we can support ideals. That's my 2 cents.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Nasrullah. That was very well said. Mr. Herr?
So I won't repeat everything that Mr. Nasrullah said because I agree with most, if not all of it. I would add to it that beyond ideals, I do think there are some specific directives that we could sign on to and request of the police department in terms of, you know, making sure we understand as individuals what our use of force policies are. We understand as individuals, not only on the board, but in the community. So we talk about this in a public setting and get it out there. But we understand in the community, you know, when any use of force might have to be used, and have that dialogue, have those discussions. Some of it may be public safety related stuff, and we need to be careful with that. But I think in light of what happened in Minneapolis and around the country since, which was absolutely horrific, you know, we need to do everything we can locally without wading into the national, I can't say that word on TV or Zoom, so the national mess in DC, you know, around this whole situation. I believe in the concept, and I believe that Black Lives Matter as a person, but as a governing body in Hopkinton, in consultation with the town council, we can't endorse a political movement. We can't endorse a political party. We can't endorse, you know, formally endorse any organization like that. Just like we can't endorse the Republican Party, Democratic Party, or the Green Party. We just can't go there. But I do think we can have specific action items and specific concepts voted on by this board and articulated so the community understands where the board comes from through these actions and through these initiatives beyond the ideals. And I don't think it's going to be easy for us to come up with that. I don't think we can come up with that list of 5 or 6 items or whatever it is tonight. Alana did a great job presenting forth ideas, a couple of which I would support when we get to them, and we'll figure out exactly how to articulate the words for that. One I would not. I personally feel that the Hopkinton Police Department has done a fabulous job in the 20 years I've lived in town, and the force that's really come along with the town over that 20-year growth period. And I would never take any money away from them just because I said we took money away from them. I would add money to the department. I wouldn't add it to individuals, or, you know, if they get certain training or something like that, to perhaps go out and get a mental health resource officer on staff, or some other form of mental health and you know, social worker, if you will, type degreed person to help the individuals on the force, and certainly to help the people in the community understand what's going on. So things like that I would do. But the concept of defunding, I would not go there at all. I also think it's important that, you know, as a community, we have this discussion in public meetings with public discussion, and not worrying about what is going to be said on Facebook, because this is one of these issues are going to be hotly contested and discussed, and there's a lot of passion around them for good reason. Facebook, in my view, is just horrific for these kinds of discussions. I've seen where it has actually driven people out of our community that we would want to stay in our community, to help us learn and understand what it's like to live in other people's shoes. So I'm really concerned about that piece of this puzzle, and I'm going to call people out when I see it happen. But I'm all for trying to figure this out, and I'm all for taking actions, concrete actions, and voting those actions and voting those ideals to Mr. Nasrullah point. But I don't think we can craft what they are tonight. It's just too much, too quickly.
Thank you. So I need to stop this discussion right now and open up a public hearing at
Okay.
7 o'clock. Mary Jo, I'll get back to you in just a moment. I'm
Yeah,
going to open
no,
it and put them on hold.
Let's do this one. We got to.
I request a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay.
Okay, and that's for the utility pole relocation of West Elm Street for Verizon and Eversource. Do we have a representative from Verizon and Eversource here?
Someone has their hand up. Oh, yeah.
Oh, Rick Foreman? Yeah.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Rich.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So
Yeah.
Richard, we're in the midst of a discussion right now. So we're going to finish what we're talking about. We've opened the meeting. We're going to kind of put you in the background. And as soon as we're done having our discussion on this call to action, then we will get back to you. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. Mary Jo.
I've been reading this and I've been talking to some people and I had some thoughts that we have a lot of different departments and I think that although they are working together fine, but there are areas in which we can overlap more. I know the senior center had a big thing on dementia and a number of citizens went to that and they became dementia I forget what you call them.
Certified dementia practitioners.
Practitioners for the town. I guess that's good enough.
Yep.
And we should give that list of people to the police department. When they have a dementia situation, you might have someone from there that can go out with them and handle it. And then I had one case with an LGBT person in town got a very nasty letter on their front door and it definitely was hate mail. And I mentioned it to Norman. And the next thing you know, he and the police chief were out visiting those people and trying to make them feel secure and better about being members of this town. And there are, the girls from the mental health institute or the mental health, I forget what you call it, here before the Board of Selectmen and they should be brought forward to all the departments so that not only the selectmen and the people who watch the selectmen's meeting know that these services are available from Hopkinton, that everybody, that the departments know that they can use these services if they find it necessary. And we coordinate that a little bit.
So, Mary Jo, I'm just going to play devil's advocate to you here for a minute. I don't know of a department head in our emergency services, which I guess is Chief Slamman and Chief Bennett, that would hesitate. I'm sure that they're already being called in calling in these, the Family and Youth Services Committee, Don Alcott and those people, when something like that happens. I want a little clarification with what you're saying. Are you saying that if the police are on their way to a call, that they should incorporate some of these people that are town employees to go with them to a call? Or are you saying after the fact, are you saying?
After they scope it out, if the person needs help, then
I'm sure that they do that. I'm sure that they do that already.
We have had some people in town who've been in that particular occupation who have ridden with police departments in other places to go to mental health emergencies. So I'm just saying it's a suggestion. It's something that we could coordinate and make sure that every department has the list of people to call. For various things, just to show that we are working toward what am I thinking of the word?
One community.
One community and openness, and just that we are trying very hard to be sensitive
Yep.
to everyone.
Thank you. Ms. Ritterbush.
Yeah, I really appreciate everyone's comments. It's been very thoughtful. I have a few ideas, trying to repeat anything, but and the idea of issuing a formal statement, I saw that the school committee voted something recently. I feel like we might want to take a look at that. And then in the Mass Municipal Association newsletter, there was also an article about some action items towns could consider adopting. So I wondered if we might look at that at a future meeting and maybe come up with some kind of statement that we can adopt that might be for Black Lives Matter, lowercase, not, obviously we're not going to support the political organization because that's not what we do, but some anti-racist practice and action items that we might take. So that'd be my suggestion, that we work on something based on what other cities and towns are doing. And then for a couple of the other items, I don't really know what our current anti-racist hiring practices and diversity and sensitive training practices are. So maybe we could just in the future, when we have time, invite someone from the Personnel Committee and Human Resources to come talk to us about what we're already doing, or if they have recommendations for some improvements, that'd be great. And then I do think it's always a good idea to look at our allocation of funds. If maybe we need more mental health counselors or social workers, but maybe we could that could come up in a discussion in the future. And then also invite the police chief to come and comment on it too. And there's always, I've had very good experience with the Hopkins Police. And sometimes towns like ours can maybe be a model for other towns. I had read a news article that if every town, suburban towns too, adopt these anti-racist principles, it becomes like the model for the nation. And then areas where it's a lot more needed, they see that, okay, this is a standard. We all have to do these anti-racist practices. And if we can be a model community and, continue to improve our town, I think that would be great.
Great.
The state's looking at us as a model community for COVID. We could be a model community for lots of things. Just good.
So I think we are a model community for.
We are.
I want to jump in real quick. One thing that Ms. Ritterbush really kind of exposed is the difference between, defunding and allocation of resources.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's something that needs to be kind of brought to the forefront. I don't think at least I personally don't agree with defunding, but where we can allocate resources to address these things, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm not against, firing any particular people but kind of taking a look at how do we address these issues and how can we do that through our funding?
Okay.
I mean, I think this is a different situation, obviously, because it's front and center in America. It's front and center in Massachusetts, and it's certainly front and center here in Hopkinton for good reason.
Yeah.
What happened was just awful. The allocation of resources is what we do every year, and now we're doing it every month with this budget situation during COVID, July, August, September, and then into next year. So I agree that allocation of resources is an important piece of this puzzle, and I'm wide open to trying to figure that out. But that is what we do every year. I mean, I've had conversations in years past about how many police officers and why, and what are they going to do, and what hours are they going to work. And I mean, we get down to the nitty gritty sometimes because we have to. So I think that's a good way to look at it.
The word defund, I do think that it comes from, there are places in this country where police departments get more money than school departments. That's a problem for them. It's not a problem here in Hopkinton. And I think we have to realize, we're not one of these big cities, and we're not, we're doing a pretty good job, and we can always do better. We can always be more sensitive, and we can always look toward changes in the future. But we're not funding our police department more than our school department, like some places. So it doesn't.
Yeah, and to add on that, Mary Jo, we're not doing a pretty good job. We're doing a damn good job.
Oh,
we're
yeah.
doing a great job. So 2 years ago, we were the safest city in the country. Last year we were the safest city in Massachusetts. We're doing a damn good job, a great job. So,
but how is our diversity? It's not great in terms of our staffing, right? We,
How do you figure that, Mr. Herr?
well, if you just look at the population of the United States of America or Massachusetts, and you compare the diversity or the numbers against the staffing of our teams, you know, I think we're light in some areas, and we can look at that. I think this
Yeah.
concept of systemic racism is bigger than most of us can probably get our heads around right now. If we go back 200 years or 300 years in the development of America, and I think that's what a lot of this discussion in nationally is about. And little old Hopkinton has a great community. It's great, you know, we're safe and we got great safety officers, but we're not immune to some of that. I don't know where that sits, but we should try and study that a little bit and understand that and report on that and then come up with some specifics and perhaps action items coming out of that. But I agree with you. I think Hopkinson's a great place to live, raise a family, and work. We all talked about that for a long time. But I don't think we can be completely blind to the fact that there might be systemic racism somewhere in our community that we don't even know and see. And that's what I think about is doing a sort of a dismantling of certain situations or institutions or what have you, and then putting it back together in a better way. And I'm open to those ideas. That's what I think is going to take some time to figure out over the next few weeks as to what we want to really kind of focus on.
So,
lot
Mr.
of
Hurst,
time.
as far as our hiring policies go, we just hired 3 police officers. 2 were female, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I agree.
So I mean, when I look at a resume, the resume doesn't have demographic information as far as race, religion, sexual preference, anything like that. We choose the best people that are presented to us. We can't make people apply to us. The positions are posted. Everybody can apply for a position. To imply that we're not sensitive to the social issues is a little bit off-putting. We hired two of the last 3 were female officers, and we didn't hire. I will tell you this: I can't say for you, and I can't say for the other members of the board. I didn't hire them because they were females. I didn't put my stamp of approval on them because they were female. I put my stamp of approval on them because they were the best candidates for the job. Guy, girl, black, white, gay, straight, doesn't make a difference to me. So we chose from where I sat the most qualified individuals, which I sat with somebody before I ran for selectman in a coffee shop, and that person said to me their goal was to have 75% female representation on every board in the next 5 years. To which I said to that person, that's the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard. Politically, my goal is to have 100% of the most qualified applicants be voted in. So I'm a firm believer that, yeah, there's always things we can do to better our community. And there are outliers where there are isolated cases, and maybe more than isolated, maybe a couple of cases of racism or bullying or whatever you have out there. They may exist. You can't eradicate those. You can try your hardest, but I don't think they're going to be eradicated. But for anybody to think that Hopkinton will accept, condone, brush under the carpet, not treat people equally is absolutely asinine in my eyes. So I am on board with getting some information and some data from the police chief, and I'm on board to look into the issues with racism and things like that, and to overall just to better our community. That's all I want to do is have a great community, and we do have a great community. But as Mary Jo said, it can always be better, and I'm on board for that. So that's all I got.
So I agree with what you're saying, Mr. Tedstone, and I don't disagree that we'll look at the most qualified, but I think the issue of systemic racism has more to do with who is applying, and I'm not saying that there's racial groups that really want to apply for jobs here. Maybe they'd rather live in Boston, maybe not, but taking a look at our institutions and seeing how the community presents itself, is there something that is preventing applicants of various ethnicities to come here?
Yep.
I think that's where I can't speak for Mr. Hurd, but that's kind of how I look at it, is that we want to take a look at ourselves and say, you know, is there something that we can take apart and put back together again? And then that creates more opportunity for more diversity within the town.
Yep. And I don't know any member of this board that doesn't feel the exact same way. And I don't mean to speak for every member of the board, but every single member of the board, my perception of every board member that we have here is that, you know, if it's not broke, don't fix it. However, we can always, it can always improve. And anyone who doesn't feel that way doesn't deserve to be on the board, because they're not in it for the, you know, for the best of Hopkinton. Because really, when you boil it down to brass tacks, we all should be here for the best of Hopkinton. And I don't know anybody on the board that is not. So, all right, that said, we've all had a chance to have our discussion. Thank you very much. We will now jump back to our...
So real quick, Mr. Tedstone, before we jump to the next item, and I'm all for that. What do we see as next steps, though, coming out of this dialogue? I know that in conversations with town council, the idea of putting together maybe 5 action items or 5 statements of about the board's feelings on these matters would be something we could craft over the next couple of weeks with Mr. Kamala's office and perhaps town council and ourselves, and then we could discuss it again at another meeting. Would that be okay?
I'm absolutely great with that. I'm fine with that.
Do
Board?
we have a work session to do it?
I'm not a big believer in work sessions myself, because that's what this job is right now. This is a work session. I think that, you know, we don't need to have it as a new future agenda item. We just continue this discussion.
Just continue it. Okay, sounds good.
At that time, hopefully we'll have some concrete things that we can get into specific to what is appropriate for the town at this level and not get us in trouble legally, but also, you know, do some digging and figure out what's best to try and sort of unpack the box a little bit.
And could we also plan to invite maybe someone from the personnel committee and someone from the police or the police chief to come to a future meeting when we have time?
Absolutely.
Over these.
Yep, absolutely, Amy. All right, good. Thank you, guys. That was a great discussion. So now, I'm sorry, let me get back to where I need to go. Public hearing. We'll go back to our public hearing. Mr. Foreman, are you still in attendance?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Yep, thank you. So the public hearing, utility pole relocation, West Elm Street, Verizon and Eversource. I request a motion. Well, actually, the meeting's already open. So the board will consider a petition submitted by Verizon and Eversource to relocate a utility pole on West Elm Street near house number 42. At a previous public hearing in April, the board approved relocation of the same pole in a southerly direction. It was going to have a push brace on private property. Since then, conditions involving the electric transmission line have caused them to reevaluate the pole location. Therefore, it's now proposed to be moved northerly rather than southerly, and the pole and its push brace will be located within the road right of way. Mr. Foreman, why don't you take us through what's going on here?
Yes, so as stated, originally the pole was set to be placed 27 feet south of the existing pole location. This was, I believe, at the request of the developer and the fire department, so that there was ample clearance to get to the residence that is built now at 42 West Elm Street. It was determined that Verizon did not have enough cable slack to transfer to that location. So now this was a meeting that was held between the developer, Verizon, Eversource, and Tom from the fire department to move the pole 10 feet north with the same push brace within the public way. Again, I have an email chain here. This meeting took place in May between Verizon, Eversource, and a gentleman by the name of Tom from the town fire department, and the location was staked and agreed upon at this location for the new pole location.
Okay, Mr. Kamalo, are you back? Are you on the line?
Yes,
No.
I am.
Okay, good, good. Mr. Kamalo, are you well versed on what we have in front of us here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, can you take us through, kind of bring us up to speed from your end?
Yeah, this is an issue that came before the board before. There was a considerable discussion in terms of what the best solution would be. And my understanding is that when it came to actually implementing the solution that was preferred, there were practical impediments. And that is why the request is now before the board. Interesting enough, and by coincidence, the solution that is being offered is one of the solutions that the board had vetted before.
Okay. So based on our prior conversation, Mr. Kamalu, and our prior, I remember this where we were hesitant because they were putting a brace across the, they were adding a post and
Right.
and we approved this pending the property owner's approval of this, which was verbally given that they had already approved, but we had nothing in writing saying that it was approved. So, so what our initial request was for them to not do a guy pole across the street, correct?
Correct.
And now what they've come back to us is they're not doing a guy pole across the street, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. Mr. Foreman, is that correct? You're not doing a brace pole across the street?
We are not. This, as you stated, the original design for this was a stub pole across the street, which was denied by the town. So then we went back and did the push brace location at the southerly part of the driveway, which was tried by Verizon back in May and was not able to be performed in the fields. So now we are doing the same push brace. The pole is just now going to be located on the northerly side of the driveway, 10 feet north of the existing pole location. So there will be no stub pole across the street.
Okay. So you said that you had a firefighter by the name of Tom with you. I imagine that's Tom Poirier. One of the issues I think the main reason that this issue came up was at the location where the pole was, it precluded fire apparatus to get in and out. Do you have anything in writing from Mr. Poirier, from Tom Poirier from the fire department, stating that this would not be an obstruction and that the fire department has no issue with it?
I do not have anything in writing. I have, this is an email from Daniel Aho who was the developer. I personally did not attend this field meeting for the revision. I just have the email chain that says, Verizon came out to move the pole, determined that it wasn't found, it could not be completed. And there was a meeting between Verizon, Eversource, and Tom Poirier from the fire department. It was done in May. It was staked out at everyone's approval, and that's all that I have.
Okay, so before I can,
We have the permitting comments as of July 9th, and the fire department says that the fire chief says that fire finds the north side of the driveway acceptable and likely a better spot. The pole should have enough clearance from beyond the driveway to allow for a swing of the fire apparatus.
okay.
And everybody else is approving too.
And is Chief Slamman still on the line?
I am here, sir.
Chief, your thoughts on this? If it's something that's fresh in your mind, or if not, I'm fine to table it until you do a little research on it.
I think it's very important to move the pole if you can, because we're having trouble and everybody's cooperating with us trying to get a pole moved, which is wonderful. So we can have access to a driveway. It's always a big public safety goal. I think the way Mary Jo just read that meets the intent. I was not aware of the staking being placed. I didn't see anything when I drove by today, but I'm happy to go there anytime. I think as long as they meet the understanding that we need to turn into the driveway. So go at least 4 or 5 feet past the driveway when they put the pole in, and I'm happy to go there anytime. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Foreman, so it sounds like you get the blessing from the fire chief. All the other permitting people had no issues. Board members, do you have any, actually, you know what, there's a process here. Let's see, just bear with me for a moment. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment to the petition? Okay, hearing none. Board members, do you have any comments or questions?
I was just going to add that Dave Del Torre said it was a better spot too. I think so.
Okay.
Sitting
Thank you.
uncomfortable.
All right, nobody else? I will request a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Hearing none. Mr. Nasrullah, how do you vote on closing the public hearing?
Nasrullah, yes.
Mr. Herr?
Yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Yes.
Ms. Ritterbusch?
Yes.
Mr. Tedstone, yes. I will request a motion to approve the relocation of pole T.79/E.79 as detailed on the petition and plan submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none. Roll call vote. How do you vote, Mr. Nasrullah?
Nasrullah, yes.
Mr. Herr?
Herr, yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Lafreniere, yes.
Ms. Ritterbusch?
Yes.
And Mr. Tedstone, yes. All right, thank you. So that's all set, all cleared.
Thank you.
So now we will go to the, Mr. Foreman, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yep. Parks and Rec Commission, office relocation and Sandy Beach parking. The Parks and Rec Commission requested to meet with the board to discuss their office location and Sandy Beach parking. Office space, as people may know, the Parks and Rec Department office is located in lease space at 85 Main Street, and the lease term has expired. However, the landlord has agreed to lease the space to the town on a month-to-month basis. Parks and Rec moved there when they outgrew their space to Town Hall. Following a 2019 annual town meeting vote, the town has acquired 6 Walcott Street to provide further parking for Town Hall. Due to COVID-19 and resulting fiscal challenges, the town will not be requesting the town meeting to fund capital articles at the September annual town meeting. Therefore, there will be no funding for the design and construction of Town Hall parking lot, including the demolition of the office building in the foreseeable future. Further, owing to COVID-19, the select board has directed the town manager to implement financial savings and efficiencies. One of those measures implemented by the town manager is terminating the lease of space at 85 Main Street soon after the Parks and Rec summer programming ends on August 15th, 2020, and relocating the Parks and Rec offices at 6 Walcott Street to avoid any disruption in office operations, and so the building can be used for office space rather than sit vacant. The town has already prepared the site at 6 Walcott to add approximately 18 parking spaces at 6 Walcott. Overall, the town remains committed to finding efficiencies and saving on the FY21 budget. Building a permanent parking lot at 6 Walcott Street and finding a permanent home for Parks and Rec's office. Mr. Kamalo, anything to add there?
Mr. Chair, I have nothing to add at this point.
Okay, so I will open this up to Mr. Terry. Dan Terry, Chair of the Parks and Rec. Is Dan with us?
Am I muted? I'm muted.
Nope, you're on, Dan.
All right. Thank you for taking the time to hear us. I guess, this is something that we have discussed a fair amount with a various number of people, and we've certainly discussed it quite a bit in our meetings. And I think that the issue that I was just recently made aware of is the reason why we weren't part of this conversation is because it's not considered a day-to-day it's considered a day-to-day issue. And well, I understand that maybe for the entire town and for the select board and the overall budget and for the town manager, this might be a day-to-day issue. The Parks and Rec Commission doesn't see this as a day-to-day issue. And I don't believe that the Parks and Rec Department does either. We weren't involved in this decision at the beginning. I think if we were, then maybe it would have been a better conversation. We would have understood the pros and cons and the dollars and cents associated with it. We would like to reconsider this there are a number of reasons, but the 2 primary reasons are We just don't have a secure line of sight for where our next office space would be. And we consider that a big operational issue if we don't have a home or even an idea where the next move would be to. I mean, I think there's a discussion point about where it might be, but I think we're miles and miles away from that particular location. And the other thing is we just don't see, well, I completely respect the need to tighten our belts, especially at this time. I just don't see that the juice is worth the squeeze there. I just don't see that there's a whole lot of savings involved. It's our own back of the envelope analysis suggests that rent's $2,000 a month. Within there, the Parks and Rec office is able to do programming that if we're not at that location, we'll need to go out and rent space to the tune of $500 to $800 a month. It just isn't enough savings given the risk of us needing to be displaced once again before a permanent place would arise. I just think that whether it's 12 months or 18 months or even 36 months, it's just it's too short of a time frame. I believe, Mr. Chairman, there's one other board member that might be up for offering comments just about a potential solution around utilizing the space. Is Lisa Jackson on?
Thank you. They just unmuted me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for bringing this before the select board. I do want to extend my condolences to Norman. I heard you had a loss in your family, and I want to extend my condolences to you. Thank you for hearing this. We kind of looked at just kind of crunched the numbers and looked at what the cost savings would be. And we may be wrong because we don't know the total cost savings because we haven't received that information from the town. But as a director of the Medical Reserve Corps in most of Massachusetts, I cover 231 municipalities. We are looking at planning for COVID-19, and currently, I was looking at some of the statistics. We've had 8,433 deaths in the state of Massachusetts, and Middlesex County is the highest among the deaths. And I would like to suggest to postpone the move until we get some more information and utilize 6 Walcott as an overflow space for the town hall as we are opening up more departments to adhere to the state guidelines of COVID-19 distancing. I would think, I know the decision was made, but I wonder if that is if we can postpone that decision to get more information, or at least consider 6 Walcott as an overflow to the town hall because of the location. Also, as Dan said, the location where 85 Main Street is where Parks and Rec is now, they can hold their classes. They've had a successful day program. But I think with the cost savings, we kind of estimated it only be around $1,500 a month. And we think that that amount would be justifiable to use that space as overflow until we know the status of COVID and until we have a vaccine and until we have a stabilization of our community during this time. That's just what I wanted to bring up. I am very new to the board, as you know. I was just elected, but I also feel that the move it kind of took me by surprise, not knowing any of the background of that. But I want the board to consider some other options. As Dan said, we kind of want to see a strategic plan. What I've learned from the Parks and Recreation Board is that they are a huge asset to our community. They offer a multitude of services. I know things are quieted down at the moment, but their location and the wonderful staff that they have there, I think, in my opinion, as a commissioner, it would be best to keep them there and then look at 6 Walcott for a potential use for Hopkinton and during this time of COVID.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Kamalu, anything?
I think as Mr. Terry said through the chair, we have discussed this issue at length. I remember a phone conversation between Dan and the chair of the select board that went on for perhaps 1.5 hours. A phone call I had with Brian Hare and Dan for a good 45 minutes. Brian Hare and I went to the Park and Rec Commission, where there was also very good exchange for a considerable length of time. I've talked extensively with the director of Parks and Rec. At this point, I can answer all the questions, all some of the issues that have been put forth, but I believe this is an issue that we've discussed extensively. Town Hall has done its analysis in terms of space needs relative to COVID-19. We therefore are not looking for any additional space in that regard. In terms of Park and Rec renting additional space for programming going forward, I think part of our discussions have acknowledged that there is a conference room at 6 Walcott Street, which is small, it's purely for smaller group meetings. And then we are finishing renovating the basement of Town Hall that is available for classroom space.
Okay. So, yes, Mr. Terry.
Well, I was going to, I also wanted to thank Norman for all the time he spent discussing this, but I just wanted to point out that all those discussions that you just described occurred after a decision was made. And what we were trying to do, what I was trying to accomplish was to have this become a discussion about making the decision. And I guess that's why we kind of did go around and around on those. But I really appreciate your time and the time you took to explain to me what the methodology was going there. We just would like to have had a voice in the decision.
Again, if I may, through the chair, Dan, you are correct that the discussions between me and members of the board were very recent. I offer that discussions between the town manager and the director happened earlier in the process. Again, I believe based on the plan that we're looking at, I have listened to the issues that the board has raised. We have made the necessary accommodations, going as far as extending the lease at 85 Main Street to allow for the completion of the summer programming on August 15th. I have nothing else further to add, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we will move on to the Sandy Beach parking. Parks and Rec has asked to increase the parking fine at Sandy Beach from $20 to $100. The process for doing this requires certain actions, including developing a parking management program at the beach that may include limiting parking to residents only, issuing parking stickers to residents, installing signage, and initiating a $100 penalty for violating the sticker rule. Mr. Kamalo.
Thanks to the efforts of the Park and Rec Commission, as well as the director, it was brought to my attention that there is need to refine the parking management program at Sandy Beach. And this has to do with the fact that currently the violation fee for parking illegally by non-residents is only $20. And that has not acted as a deterrent to people leaving their, trailers and so forth. And thus, based on the input received, I am recommending that the select board authorize a parking program that might include the following components. One, requiring a resident sticker. Two, raising the parking fee violation to $100, which was recommended by Park and Rec Commission. Three, developing the necessary signage, identifying who can park on the lot. And then last but not least, conducting the necessary public education that is required to make such programs work. And the town manager can work and coordinate with the Park and Rec Commission and the Park and Rec Director to implement such a program.
Great. Mr. Terry, do you have anything to add?
I believe Mr. Gulfi does.
Mr. Gelfi?
Yeah, as Norman stated, a $20 fine just simply is not a good enough deterrent to keep folks from coming down there and parking illegally. And what we're trying to really accomplish is to limit the amount of boat traffic in the lake right now. There's a lot of jet skiers, a lot of folks from out of town coming with jet skis and other personal watercraft. And it's just, I feel like it's a ticking time bomb down there, that there's going to be another incident on that lake that we're all going to be really unhappy about. So we're trying to accomplish a goal of limiting folks on that lake, understanding that it's hot out and people want to come, but we would really like that boat launch to be for Hopkinton residents to enjoy that lake, and not so much the folks from out of town that are looking to come down and tear it up down there. And that's what's happening. So that's what we'd like to do.
Totally agree with you, Mr. Gelfi. I appreciate your coming tonight. I did do a little bit of research through town council. The most that we are allowed to charge people is $300. So if $100, if the increase to $100 would limit or kind of slow down some of the or deter some of the people, I think that a $300 fine would certainly speak volumes. Parks and Rec, I don't want to unilaterally make that decision. And of course, the board has to agree to it as well. But, based on everything that Mr. Kamalu said, where we would, it's going to be free for town residents and all they have to do is get a sticker, and it will be available for town residents. People that don't do it and they don't do the right thing, I think that a $300 fine would be much more of a deterrent. So what are your thoughts on that, Jay?
I think the residents down at Lake Maspinock would definitely agree with that. They would probably prefer the fine to be as much as we could make it.
That is as much as we could make it.
Yeah. So, I think that's something that the Parks and Rec Commission can vote on this Thursday when we meet. It's on the agenda. We just have to, we're just waiting to finalize this so we can purchase some signs to put in down there to let people know that if you park illegally, you're going to be, the police take notice and you will be issued the maximum fine. So
I don't know if we'll be able to get this done and implemented this year, Jay, but I think that we definitely can get that done. And I think that's for the good of not just the lake residents. I'm not thinking for the lake residents. I'm thinking for the town. Right. I know that I personally, when I was on the fire department, went down to the lake once where a jet ski drove over a guy and the guy lost his leg. Those things it's no joke. And for us to have a public beach out there with a couple of buoys where these jet skis are going 60, 70 miles an hour, it's not a recipe for success. That's for sure. So, in thoughts of keeping our public safe on the beach, our Hopkinton public safe on the beach, kind of keeping it more towards a town beach, and making the ramifications of breaking our rules severe. I am going to go ahead and put the $300 penalty into my motion after we discuss it with the board.
Thanks, Brendan.
Okay.
We are going to have discussion on this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Great.
Do you have something to say, Dan?
No, I'm a little confused as to what items we get to have discussion on and what items we don't. But okay. I'm here to learn.
Okay. Board members, do you have anything you want to discuss?
Yeah, I have a clarification. We were talking about signage, and you're talking about jet skis, and you're talking about boats, and you're talking about the boat ramp, and restricting all of that and making that a $300 fine. Well, what about your little families and just the beach?
What do you mean?
Well, what if someone comes to Milford and it's just a mother and two kids and they want to use the beach?
They have to be, currently, they need to be accompanied by a Hopkinton resident to use the town beach.
So they'll be required to have a sticker on their car from Hopkinton, or they don't have to have a sticker on their car. They can come and use the beach and then come out to a $300 fine on their car.
So I'm a little uncomfortable with restricting
Yeah, I am too.
to just Hopkinton residents. I mean, if you went to the Cape, you want to go to the beach, and sorry, this is just for wealthy people. I mean, I think there's got to be. I would suggest that we have some kind of use fee. That if someone from out of town wants to come in and use the beach, you know, they got to pay a $50 fee or whatever it may be. But you know, the mother and two kids coming from Milford who just want to hang out on the beach. I'm a little uncomfortable with saying no one from out of town can come here.
Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, go ahead, Dan.
So that's been the policy in other years, but given the challenges around social distancing and frankly the lack of other alternatives for people to do things this summer, we've seen an increased number of people at the beach from town. So the Parks and Rec Commission was concerned about our ability to socially distance on the beach, and with the possibility that families from Hopkinton, given that there's so much financial support to Sandy Beach by the town of Hopkinton, we were concerned that some of those residents could potentially be shut out in favor of people that got there a little bit before them that are not paying taxes in the town of Hopkinton.
Thank you, Dan.
So the way it works on the Cape, at least the places I see down there, there's public beaches and there's private beaches. The private beaches are generally tied to landowners or associations, things like that. And the public beaches all have somebody out front. They have the guards on the beach and they've got someone out front, and it's $25 driving in for everybody that's coming in. My concern would be that we're going to be adding cost to the models if we have to hire additional people. Maybe we could offset that by charging money as people come in. But also the concept of the issuance of the parking sticker itself. Who's going to administer that and staff that, if you will? Like, would that be?
So through the chair, we have the infrastructure to do that, Brian. We do it now with beach passes. We do it now with boat trailer stickers. It's really not that difficult to do. Most people actually do it through our website now. And typically once the word gets out, people who use that beach often usually are pretty good about it. So it's not, the administration of it isn't really the challenge. The challenge is to get it out there and so that people know.
Okay, that's fair and that's fine. So why couldn't we do a combination of the two? Why couldn't we do the stickers for Hopkinton residents, and then we have someone there and charge $30 a day, and maybe instead of 25, go to 30 to pay for that person that sits there all day and collects that revenue so that people can park there. I mean, on the Cape, it's first come, first serve. You don't show your address when you show up to
Not in every town, Brian. Not at every beach.
Right, I agree. I understand that.
I know that. So you go to Falmouth, and Falmouth, you have to be a resident in order to get a beach sticker.
Yeah, well, I do think that we want to be accommodating as best we can. I've not been to Sandy Beach on Monday to Friday between 9 and 5 because of work and so on. So I don't know what it's like to park down there, but I do see it on the Cape on the weekends, and it is whoever gets out of bed first gets the parking spot. And that happens in Rhode Island and other places too.
So before we go too far down this, I mean, we've talked about it at our meetings and we came up with this, but really what we're trying to talk about tonight is a deterrent for people that are coming in with trailers. So we've got a policy where Hopkinton residents can buy a trailer for one fee, out-of-towners can buy a trailer pass for another fee. And the primary reason for this is to get less boat traffic out there, especially from the jet skiers that come from out of town. So if that part is offensive, then I guess we could discuss that.
I have no problem with restricting boat access and jet ski access and all that sort of thing, and a $300 fine. I have a problem with the small families and the people that just want to come for a swim. I wouldn't even mind lowering a fee for them or finding a way for them to get a visitor pass. Something like that. But I don't want to see somebody come go to the beach and go for a swim with their kids and pay $300. I mean,
So Mary Jo, I guess,
to me.
so Mr. Terry said it pretty succinctly there, is where we can't accommodate based on our social distancing parameters. We're having a hard time accommodating people from Hopkinton. So I'd say in a perfect world where it was open and you could stack the beach, then yeah, I think it's a good idea to be able to, you know, have the beach passes and out of towners can pay X amount and people from Hopkinton get it for free because we pay taxes for it. But with the whole social distancing aspect of what's going on now, I would hate to see a little family like the small family that you're talking about from Milford or Ashland or Franklin, wherever they come from, come here and make it so the same size family from Hopkinton who pays taxes to have that lake repaired and staffed, that they now can't use it because of our social distancing parameters.
So at the end of the day, Parks and Rec is duly elected, and they are responsible for Sandy Beach, not the select board. The only fundamental question in front of us is, are we okay raising the fines? Because that's where we make a decision.
Okay.
About,
right.
You know, raising the fines if someone violates Parks and Rec's policy. I mean, we're all talking about what we think they might do, but it's their job to figure it out. And we should leave it at that. I think we're probably far into their weeds here. I would agree that we could raise the fine. I don't know if $300 is appropriate, but I like 125, 150. Anything over north of 100 is going to annoy people. They're not going to want to do it. Anything under 100, they may be like, whatever. It's cheap parking for the day. I'll pay the $75. So I'm thinking maybe somewhere above it. But if Parks and Rec says it's 100 and that's going to deter people and this is their responsibility to manage this asset, then I'd support that too.
I could, yeah, I think I agree with Brian that I definitely think the fee is not a deterrent now. We need to raise it. I think 125 is a reasonable amount and would be a lot more of a deterrent. Just a couple points to consider when Parks and Rec makes their decision. Sometimes when you require the resident sticker or other sticker to park in a parking lot, then it drives people to park on side streets and other places near the beach. And it's very narrow streets over there, the Sandy Beach area. So just be conscious, I guess, that we could be creating that other problem. And I don't think she's listening, but my mother-in-law is very frugal and she will never pay to park in another town's beach. And so she'll find some other place she can park in front of someone's house. So anyway, just you could end up with a lot of cars parked in those narrow streets around Sandy Beach if only residents could park in the lot. So I think keep that in mind. And also, how is it going to be enforced? I don't know if it's the police department that enforces that or if Parks and Rec staff enforces it.
Well, I can answer that.
Yeah.
So currently we have a staff, typically a high school kid who's down there in the parking lot, and they're instructed when someone parks a trailer to look for a sticker. And if there is not a sticker, they inform the person that they need to purchase one, which can be done online right there. If the person chooses not to purchase a sticker and parks their trailer anyway, they call the police and they call me. The police come down and they give them an orange citation for $20, which is fine, except that most people now, to your point, $20 to park all day and go out and jet ski seems reasonable to people. So we need to increase it. It's really, from time to time, we do have angry people who are confrontational, but the police typically respond to that in under 2 minutes. And it very, very rarely happens. This year, it's getting a little testy down there because more people than ever are using that park because of COVID. So you have a lot of folks from out of town who drive 30, 40 minutes with their jet skis. They get there and they're told they can't leave their trailer there. so they can get a little testy, which is why we really need to do this. And we need to do it now while it's, in my opinion, anyway.
I'm on board with, limiting jet skis. I mean, I don't think people from out of town should be able to come out here and use their jet skis here. My concern is restricting it for everybody. So I'm totally on board with raising the fee to whatever Parks and Rec wants to raise it to. I agree with Brian that this is your job to figure it out. You're an elected board, and limiting other people driving 30 miles or 30 minutes to jet ski in our lakes, and limiting the ability for Hopkinton residents to that makes no sense.
It's again, if you don't mind, it's two different types of boaters. The jet ski crowd and the Saturday afternoon pontoon boat crowd are two different crowds of people, and they don't typically play nice together all the time. And you got folks out there on boats who want to jump off their boat and swim. My fear is that someone's going to combine a jet ski, as Brendan mentioned, and run someone over with a jet ski. I think it's inevitable. I don't think it's a matter of if, it's a matter of when right now.
Good. So I'm going to make a motion. I'm assuming everybody's all set. Everybody had their say?
Yeah, my thing is, I would like to distinguish between those with boats and trailers and boat ramps and those who just want to use the beach for a little while.
Okay.
I think we need to make some kind of differentiation there.
So I will request a motion to authorize a parking management program for Sandy Beach, which may include the following components. Number one, limit parking to residents only. Number two, issuance of parking stickers to town residents. Number three, installation of appropriate signage. And four, instituting a penalty up to $300 for violating the residents only parking sticker rule based on the Parks and Rec Commission's determination of said amount. And to authorize the town manager to work with Parks and Rec Commission and the Parks and Rec Department to implement this program.
So moved.
Mr. Kamala, does that sound in order?
Yeah, except for one piece. The amount must be determined by the select board.
Okay. Well, do we think that, we don't think that we're going to be able to get this done this year anyways, right?
Well,
The fine would
there's
go in place
the
immediately.
COVID argument. If we don't do it till next year, we may not have the COVID argument.
The fine would go in place immediately, I believe.
Mr. Kamala?
Okay.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So long as the town implements the required signage, as well as preparing the appropriate ticket.
Yeah, I already talked.
Lisa, can you mute yourself?
She did.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I would amend your motion, if I could, please, to insert a fine of $150.
I would accept that friendly amendment.
I'm more comfortable with that amount as well.
Mr. Nasrullah, are you good with that? You seconded it, right?
I so moved it, so I accept the friendly amendment.
Okay, has it been seconded?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Nasrullah, how do you vote?
Nasrullah, yes.
Mr. Herr?
Herr, yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Frenier, yes.
Ms. Ritterbusch?
Yes.
Mr. Tedstone, yes. All
And
right, great.
I did, if the chair will allow, I had a couple more comments about the previous Parks and Rec discussion. Just
Go ahead.
okay. So I guess what I've been thinking about lately is that at town meeting we voted to buy Walcott Street for the parking lot, not to be used for Parks and Rec, and then also the town hall basement we voted not at town meeting to renovate that. And I think the public will completely understand the reason for the change now. The COVID has kind of just changed everything. But I think it would be helpful for us to have some document we could post to if the town manager would have time to just write up the reasons that it was done. And then when we get questions from the public, we'd be able to explain it better.
Good idea.
All right. I'm sure Mr. Kamalo is good with that. Mr. Kamalo?
Good.
Okay. Was that it, Amy?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So moving on. Let's see. So the Main Street Corridor Main Street Corridor project utility pole relocation. The board will consider waiving its regulations for pole and wire location petitions for the purpose of pole relocation at the Main Street Corridor project as described in the the project plans previously approved. There have already been a lot of public input in the Main Street plan development, and the pole locations and pole removals where there's undergrounding have not changed for some time. Mr. Kamalo, do you have anything to add?
Just clarifying that this is an administrative step that is necessary. The project plans, as you described, have already been reviewed by the board before and approved.
So it's strictly administrative?
Correct.
The board, do you have anything?
We have the list now, so that's all I need to know.
Okay.
I think as the project goes on, there's going to be, it'll take forever if we have to approve every little detail in the plan. So I think,
yeah,
total sense.
And we did not receive any comments from the public or staff on this one, right? Okay.
No.
Okay. I'll request a motion that the board waive its regulations for pole and wire location petitions for the purposes of pole relocation for the downtown corridor project.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Nasrullah, how do you vote?
Nasrullah, yes.
Mr. Herr?
Herr, yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Frenier, yes.
Ms. Ritterbusch?
Ritterbusch, yes.
Headstone, yes. Host community agreement, marijuana testing lab, 100 South Street, ATOS Laboratories. The board will review and consider approving a host community agreement with ATOS Laboratories Incorporated relative to marijuana testing lab that will be located at 100 South Street. After the HCA is approved by the town, ATOS will proceed with the licensing process with the Cannabis Control Commission. Mr. Kamalo.
Yeah, through the chair. I believe your introduction does explain why this issue is before the board. A host community agreement is required per the Mass General laws that approved the setting up of marijuana establishments. The key, therefore, is to highlight the following. We are specifically, as part of this agreement, asking that an emergency response plan with the fire department and police department be in place. We are also making sure that the host community agreement that is moving forward is enforceable by a court of competent jurisdiction. We have been in the past in situations where we have wondered whether the HCA or host community agreement can be enforced in a court of law. In terms of specific benefits, let me highlight the following. Community contributions. We do have agreement from A to Z that Mr. Zook will be personally providing sponsored educational programs on public health, drug abuse prevention, participating in the town's STEM program to the tune of providing 40 hours annually to meet this obligation. Also based on presentations by the A to Z negotiating team, there's agreement that there will be a good faith effort during the course of this, during the course of the agreement, the term of the agreement, to identify specific impacts on the town, and at that time, enter into good faith negotiations. The reason being, when we sent the project proposal to town departments, we could not identify specific impacts at this time, and therefore now we included a provision which says if the town can document those impacts going forward, we have a reopener that will allow the parties to sit down and negotiate an impact fee. The law agrees or allows an impact fee up to 3% of the earnings of the establishment. There will be an effort to use local vendors, employ locally, so long as the A to Z establishment complies with both state and federal laws. The issue of social justice and equity came up in our discussions, and the commitment that we have through this agreement is that the company shall submit annually to the town a report describing how it has addressed the goals of this section. The state requirements have identified some measures that will account for success in social justice and equity. And again, it's a new area. I did review agreements throughout the United States of America where these establishments are allowed. This is an area that is evolving, and I think we will also learn as we go about. Notice too the challenge that because of the town stand on marijuana, it is very difficult for us to actually be identifying how the town could use money from a marijuana establishment to support even our smoking prevention programs. We've also agreed with A to Z. Yeah. Yes, we've also agreed with A to Z that they will share all the reports that they submit to the Cannabis Commission for the town's review. And then finally, very interesting, right from the bat when A to Z came to town, they mentioned the work that they do in working with the FBI, law enforcement agencies in preventing drunk driving and so forth. And thus, under this agreement, they have agreed to support our local law enforcement initiatives, either by providing analytical testing or other related services. However, all of this will be subject to the commission agreeing that they can actually do that.
Okay. So board members, if you have any questions, we have Bud Zauk, who is the A to Z. By the way, in the future, Mr. Kamalo or Ms. Lazarus, maybe you could put a space in between some of these letters so I don't call it ATOZ.
That's what I was
It could
saying in
go
my
either
head the
way.
whole time when I was reading it. I said ATOZ.
It could go either way, ATOZ or A to Z.
Okay, good. So I was right. I like that. So we have Bud Zauk and Ms. Freed, who's on our town council, who are present and able to answer any type of questions. So board members, Mr. Nasrullah, do you have anything?
I have none.
Mr. Herr?
Mr. Chair, so just to remind myself and perhaps those that haven't paid close attention to this development in town, this organization is a testing facility for marijuana. It is not a retail facility. There will be no foot traffic in and out of this with residents or neighborhoods or anybody else for that matter coming to the facility. And it's really a self-contained business operation. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Kamalo?
That is correct, Mr. Hare.
Thank you. I'm all set.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Of course, being a former assessor, I'm looking at the real estate and personal property taxes clause in this, and I was wondering, it says that they're responsible, the owner or the leasee is responsible for the taxes. Now, we have this agreement, and the agreement is with the leasee. Can we ask for the lease agreement between the leasee and the owner to see where that they will be responsible for the taxes? I mean, there's nothing in here that says they have to pay it if the landowner doesn't. And I think that's where we, If we just got a copy of the lease agreement between them and the landowner that says the owner is responsible for the taxes would be okay. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, if I may, just to explain the context, the provision is specifically not addressing whether we have a paid tax bill or an outstanding tax bill, but
Right.
rather that the parties will not be seeking any relief relative to taxes that are owed.
They won't be
If
applying
I may
for-
add, if I may add as well, that we did submit a copy of our lease along with the application to the town of
Okay.
Hopkinton. So you do have a copy of the
Okay,
entire
we
lease.
just haven't seen it, that's all. Thank you.
And can I just add one thing through the chair? I'd just like to point out that this provision originated with medical marijuana establishments. They used to have to be nonprofits. So you saw this term in HCA's to just ensure that, the town could collect taxes, real property taxes on nonprofit owned property. So this is sort of a carryover from that. It just ensures, again, that this will be taxable.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Ritterbusch?
Yeah, I just had one question. I think I know the answer, but I had done some research on this a while ago when we were just doing our bylaw about allowing marijuana facilities. My understanding is that only marijuana facilities where they might grow the marijuana have an odor that can be smelled beyond the building. And I just want to confirm that there's no growing in this building. It's just testing, right?
Yes, absolutely. Just testing, no growing whatsoever.
Thank you.
All right, great. So I will request a motion to approve the host community agreement with A to Z Laboratories Incorporated for a marijuana testing facility at 100 South Street.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none. Mr. Nasrullah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Herr?
Or yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Lafreniere, yes.
Ms. Ritterbusch?
Ms. Ritterbusch, yes.
Ted Stone, yes. So that carries. Thank you. FY 2021 budget updates and modify 1/12 FY 2021 budget for August and September 2020. Mr. Kamalu.
Yeah, through the chair, let me speak to the overall budget update, and either Ben Sweeney or Tim O'Leary will speak to the specific changes or requests regarding the 1/12 budgets for August and September.
Go right ahead, Mr. Kamalu.
Yeah. With regard to the town's fiscal year 2020 budget execution for the period that ended a few weeks ago on June 30th, I am pleased to report that even with the pressures of COVID-19 emergency, the town completed execution of the FY20 budget within authorized spending levels. Final financial results will be available in a few weeks. However, it is noteworthy that the town expended only 52,000 of the 1.6 million allocated to us by the Commonwealth under the Federal CARES Act in the last budget year, leaving the bulk of that funding available to support operations in FY 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, and then moving on to the monthly budgets that the town is presently operating under, we've been successful in establishing account balances and internal controls for this new monthly approach. And I'm pleased to report that all operations are continuing under the July budget with no interruptions or adverse impacts on mission effectiveness.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mr. Kamalu.
Yes, and therefore, with regard to the the August and September 1/12 budgets, I will ask either Ben Sweeney or Tim O'Leary to walk the board through the vote that we're looking for.
Okay. Who we got, Mr. Sweeney or Mr. O'Leary?
So I can go ahead, Ben. So I can just start that. So on July 20th, after reviewing Hopkinton's proposed monthly budget, the Department of Revenue requested that we increase the budget request to a minimum of $8,274,073, even though the town intends to spend at a level of $4,221,982 or less. The provision for the minimum budget is included in the statute that's authorizing the monthly budgets. So the DOR in this case is taking more stock in that aspect of the budget, even though we intend to spend substantially less. So it's therefore recommended that the municipal expenditures line be increased accordingly to comply with the DOR direction, with the understanding that the extra funds budgeted will not be spent in August. We would continue to maintain the spending plan that we provided to you, and the revised promotions were provided to you in the meeting.
Okay.
But would that impact our tax rate that we're going to set here later this fall if we've got this excess spending authorization?
It would not. So what's interesting about this law is it's meant to continue operations before a town meeting is approved. So essentially, when town meeting approves a budget, these three monthly budgets are erased. So it has no impact on the tax rate. Once a budget is approved, it is essentially as if these monthly budgets were never approved.
Okay.
In fact, if I may, Brian, I can report to the board that the budget process for the full 2021 fiscal year is proceeding as planned, and therefore the change in the monthly amounts for July and September do not alter that budget.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just one thing to add, the other changes were just some fairly modest increases for school expenditures for August and September to allow for the possibility of purchase of materials and supplies for alternate school reopening approaches. And we are including an increase in the enterprise fund amount for August to allow a transfer to HCAM for $50,000 from the funding available to them. We were going to provide that in the fall, but they've requested access to that funding now. So we would advance that as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. O'Leary. So if the board members have nothing else, I will request a motion to authorize monthly expenditures for August 2020 in the following amounts: municipal expenditures, non-school at $5,965,898, school expenditures at $1.874959 million, and enterprise funds at $433,216. So that I have entertained that motion.
So moved.
Anyone care to second that?
I'll second it with a question. Mr. Kamalo, is that motion in order? Is that what you need for this kind of money and this change, or is that a DOR acceptable motion?
Yes, to both. It's in order, and it also complies with what DOR is looking for.
Okay.
Mr. Nasrullah, how do you vote?
Nasrullah, yes.
Mr. Herr?
Herr, yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Frenier, yes.
Ms. Ritterbusch?
Ritterbusch, yes.
Headstone, yes. I will request a motion to authorize monthly expenditures for September 2020 in the following amounts: municipal expenditures, non-school, $3.410260 million, school expenditures, $4.648503 million, and enterprise fund, $334,146.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Nasrullah, how do you vote?
Nasrullah, yes.
Mr. Herr?
Herr, yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Frenier, yes.
Ms. Ritterbusch?
Ritterbusch, yes.
Headstone, yes. Great. I cannot tell everybody how excited I am at some point to get back to town meeting and not have to do all this garbage. So we will move on to the town manager report. Mr. Kamalo.
Before we do that, Mr. Chair, noting the time, I actually need to step away from the meeting. So it's okay with everyone. I'm going to sign off.
So moved.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Irfan. Have a nice night.
Thanks. You too.
Mr. Kamalo, town manager report.
Yeah, quickly, in terms of Main Street, two highlights. The bid process is still open, and we are expecting to have the bid results announced after August 11th. We also, early this week or late last week, received approval for the utility work to commence, meaning the undergrounding. And then we also putting forth before the board the request that the board accept the town staff recommendation, accepting the proposal by 26.2 Foundation for the remaining approximately 9 acres at the East Main Street parcel.
Okay, so could I do a motion now, Mr. Kamala?
Yes, if the board has any, we'll answer any questions after the motion is moved.
Okay. I request a motion that the board approve the award of the lease of an additional 9.6 acres of property located at 45 East Main Street to the 26.2 Foundation, subject to 1, successful negotiation of a lease between the town and the 26.2 Foundation, and 2, town meeting approval, and further to authorize the town manager to negotiate a lease with the 26.2 Foundation, which shall incorporate all 19 acres of property located at 45 East Main Street with the assistance of town council. Board members, do you have any comments?
I was hoping we could get a quick summary of, I know it's in the packet, but for the public's benefit, of the proposal for the remaining acres.
This is something, Mr. Kamala, am I correct to say that this is something that we spoke about when we did the initial lease?
Correct.
Okay, so it's not new. then.
Yeah. And specifically, were you looking for this description of the entire proposal or what aspect of the 9 acres?
I'm sorry, I was thinking that there were 2 sections, right? Is there a 9 acre and a 10 acre section? Is that right?
Yeah, in terms of the land parcel, yes. However, the project overlaps the 2 parcels.
I think when we first did the RFP, there was a certain amount of land that was part of that RFP process. And this is an add-on to that through town council. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Kamala?
Yeah, through discussions between the town and the 26.2 Foundation.
But including town council adding this land to that mix.
Yes, as well as having extensive conversations between the select board, Park and Rec Commission, and 26.2 Foundation.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, and it will be approved by town meeting whenever we end up having town meeting.
Correct.
Okay. So there'll be opportunity to see the plans in more detail for the public at that time.
All set?
Well, I think the details, though, are all part of the RFP project, Amy. I'm not sure that's necessarily what's going to be in front of town meeting. It's just a lease authorization. All leases in Massachusetts have to go before town meeting before they can be implemented or executed. But I don't know if there's going to be a full review of the overall project, because that was at town meeting 2 years ago whenever we got the authorization to go ahead and do the RFP. So don't think it's going to necessarily be that at this coming town meeting or whenever it is we have it on the town meeting.
Right. It's just that, as we know, when projects take many years, people sort of forget what they voted on a couple years ago. So the more we can just communicate, the better.
True.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. It has been seconded. Any further board discussion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Nasrullah is not here. So Mr. Herr, how do you vote?
Herr, yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Lafreniere, yes.
Ms. Ritterbusch?
Ritterbusch, yes.
Goodstone, yes. Great. Is that all you got for town manager report, Norman?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Good. Liaison reports. Anyone have any liaison reports? Mr. Kamala, when are we going to reallocate our liaison assignments?
Tonight.
Oh,
We just lost Mr. Nasrullah.
yeah.
So we can sign him up for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta send him one with X's. Just-
Yeah. Alternatively, the board can continue this to its next meeting.
Let's continue it.
Can I make a suggestion, though?
Sure.
Since it is kind of, there's a lot of roles. It looks like everyone takes about 8 roles. I don't know if it might make for a more organized process if we all sent to Norman and Elaine kind of our first choice liaison roles, or and then a second choice. And so then we might easily figure out some roles that only one person wants, and then other roles might need more discussion. I'm just trying to think. It's a lot of roles to go through one at a time.
So generally how we've done it is, when we go through, it's the liaisons that you have that you're assigned already. They'll ask if you want to hold on to them. And then it's kind of like when you were a kid at Halloween, you kind of trade them around, and I don't want this, I'll take this if you take this. And it's kind of fun. So I
Well,
would.
should we in advance maybe say, people who already have roles, say which ones they want to continue with?
Sure. I think, Norman, is there anything to say that we can't do that through you? Not amongst ourselves, but we can create a process and do that through you. So we're prepared to announce that at our next meeting, because obviously we wouldn't do that with more than 2 board members, because that would be a violation of open meeting law. But can we do that through you, or should we wait till the next meeting?
We can post a shared document online, have board members indicate their interests, and if there are any conflicting interests, the discussion will have to occur in a public meeting.
Okay.
That sounds like it'll be more efficient that way.
Yeah. That sounds good. So the only thing that I have, I'm sorry. So, Mr. Hurd, do you have any liaison reports?
I do not know.
Ms. Lafreniere?
No, I don't right now. Thank you.
I know you don't, Amy, because you're not on it yet.
I do have a couple comments though.
All right.
It looked to me, I mentioned this to Elaine, but the growth study committee liaison is missing from the list. And then we did have, let's see, a request for the Freedom Team to have a select board as liaison. That's a new organization that's forming in town.
Yeah, that's going through Mr. Kamala. I mean, Mr. Mieres. I don't know. That's not a town-sponsored
It's an
board.
True.
So that's going through. Mr. Mieres is investigating the legality of us being on that committee.
Okay, but I presume as a citizen, I could still go attend their meetings if I
Sure,
wanted.
you're a
just not being
citizen.
an
You can
official.
go to
Yep.
any meeting you want.
Okay.
And for me, the only liaison report that I have is I'm on a couple of those subcommittees for the re-entry action group for the schools. So we've had some discussions which they've asked us to not make public right now, but we have had some discussion on the transportation process, as well as curriculum, and they've discussed what their options, to speak at 30,000 feet, their options of what they have in front of us starting in September. So once the governor and his council gives a little bit more clarity and direction to us, we can present it to you.
Mr. Chair, can I just offer a quick comment specific to a former colleague of ours, Mr. Catino? He is, last week he did a first responders lunch at the house he has redone on Grove Street. Tomorrow he's doing the same thing. He sent me a text and asked if I would make a quick announcement that he's happy to feed our first responders tomorrow again. He's got a little time on his hands, so he's cooking, and you can swing by tomorrow for lunch and enjoy some company there.
No, you may not announce that, Mr. Hurd. Okay. Future board agenda items. Any members have any future board agenda? Mr. Herr?
Not at this time.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Well, I have been asked, and Parks and Rec was here, I probably should have asked them, but I've been asked by some citizenry over at the lake. They said that a number of years ago at town meeting, that parking lot was supposed to be redone and it never did get done, and they're wondering what's happened to it.
Okay.
That's all.
All right. Ms. Ritterbusch?
Yeah, I had a few items. I've been waiting for this. I wanted to discuss in the future maybe some updates to the select board website. I had some ideas for that, and I could write something up to submit in advance of a meeting. Let's see. I thought it would be useful if we would have some kind of Legacy Farms tracking document, because it's been a very long project, and a lot of things are almost done now, and the public kind of like to see what's done, what's left, what's coming. So that might be a good idea. I was hoping that we could post all the hosts, this is, I guess, related to the website, all the host community agreements to the select board website for easy access by the public, including this new one that we just authorized for the A to Z. Let's see. And I'm sure this will come up, but I'd like to have us discuss how we're going to hold town meeting safely in the fall. And then, let's see, and for local charities in town, I've been hearing that they are wondering if they had a charity runner, are they still expected to raise a certain amount for that runner, even though the marathon's not going to be held as it usually was? I'm hearing some charities are afraid if their runner doesn't, raise a significant amount, that they might be penalized and not get a number next year. So it would be good, I think, if the board could clarify if they won't be penalized or not, will or won't be penalized for not raising the amount stated originally.
So we had, Amy, we had Mr. Kilduff come up and make a proposal to us prior to your election that he is doing some work with some town people and some BAA people to hold a marathon within the confines of Hopkinton for the Hopkinton charity people. So if that goes on, then we would assume, I would imagine that we would assume that they would be held accountable for the
original amount.
the
Okay.
numbers, yeah. But
Okay.
that's all in the details. I'm not speaking for that. That's 20% of the board's assumption on a potential proposal down the road.
Okay. And then the last thing I was thinking of is trying to establish like more of a baseline of how diverse are our current boards and committees, just kind of getting a baseline of where we are now on a representation of different groups. And then, not that we would implement quotas of any kind, but you just kind of have to see where you are before you can see where some diversity might be needed. That would be something I thought we might want to work on.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, our select board is 3 Democrats, no Republicans. So that's concerning.
Right.
So my goal for tonight's meeting was strictly to make Mr. Kamalu laugh, and I see that I just did that. He laughed out loud, so my
Good
job is
job.
done. That's the nurse in me. I'm a nurturer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Is
Before
that it, Amy?
That's it. Yeah.
All right, I have none.
Before
So
we close, I just wanted to mention the Housing and Development, Community Development letter we got from the governor. Makes a designated housing choice community for 2020, and it giving us some advantages in their program through that letter. So if anybody is interested.
So am I correct? Last year we were a housing choice community, I think, too, but didn't actually get any grants. Is that right?
I don't know, because I'm not sure whether we applied for any, if we got any, but we could. We should.
It's a 2-year approval.
Oh, okay. Great.
all right. So so I see Amanda Fargiano is still on. I'd like to congratulate her for being elected to chair the school board. And,
oh, great.
And I see Gary Trendell was voted as chair of the planning board. So congrats to both of them. I will request I move to adjourn the meeting. How's that?
Second.
What? Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. How do you vote? Mr. Nasrullah absent. Mr. Herr.
Herr, yes.
Miss Lafreniere.
Yes.
Ms. Ritterbush.
Ms. Ritterbush, yes.
Goodstone, yes. Thank you all. Good night.
Good night, all.
Good night. Good night, everybody.